Welcome to Business Beyond Borders, the go-to podcast for CPA firms seeking transformative insights. I'm your host, Lawrence Whittam, and with each episode we'll uncover key insights, best practices, and invaluable resources tailored for CPAs. From trending strategies to diving deep into outsourcing and offshoring, our experts will help in all areas of your business. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Business Beyond Borders. You're here with Lawrence, and today I have a great guest, Nick Sinclair, who we've more recently met up in person for the first time, I think it was. Maybe we crossed paths a few years ago as well, but we definitely met in person at the Digital CPA conference. So how you doing, Nick?
Yeah, great to be here with you today. Thanks for having me, Lawrence.
So, and again, Nick is CEO and founder of TOA Global and based in the Philippines. So has built a great team over there, and he's got, again, a lot going on. And most notably, I will say, looking very good. I know you've been on the workout grind like myself, and I've seen all the posts. So congrats with that side of things as well. But do you want to give a quick intro about yourself so everybody that doesn't know you gets to know you?
Yeah, thanks, Lawrence. So I ran an accounting and financial services business for close to 12 years before falling into the outsourcing. So I first went to the Philippines as part of Entrepreneurs Organisation for our global leadership training. And that's sort of how I fell into the outsourcing side of it. I found it while I was there and then built my own back office for my own office. And then I went on a speaking tour with a guy called Rob Nixon. So some of you may know him. And it was there that, I had other firms saying, look, I don't want to build what you've built. Can we just put people in your office? Have you got some spare desks? And I said yes 90 times over 3 weeks. And then it turned into what is now TOA Global. And now we're 3,700 people, 1,000 clients globally. We've got offices in Fort Worth, Texas, and a team there. So that's sort of how TOA Global has grown to be what it is today, me running my own firm, solving my own problems with talent and attracting and retaining team members. And then it's grown to what it is today. Predominantly we're in the Philippines. We do have a small team in South Africa as well.
And then from that perspective, whereabouts in the Philippines? Because you've got a few locations, I think, from my understanding, yeah?
Yeah, so we're across the 3 key areas, so Manila, Cebu, and Clark. And then we run what we call a hub and spoke model, so core offices in the core regions, and then satellite offices, basically where our team members work. So we've also got one in Tarlac and one opening in San Fernando. So we're very much around all the key areas, and that is our model to continue to expand that.
Cool. So, I mean, how have things just developed over the year? Again, you've been there for a while. You've been working with firms more specifically, right, around the world, like not just in the US, but in Australia, in the UK, right? So now, just even from getting started to now, how much have things changed just from the market working with accounting firms?
Yeah, so we exclusively work with accounting firms. And I think that, 10 years ago, it was, early adopters, predominantly if you look at the Asia Pacific side of the world, so Australia, New Zealand, more recently, probably in the last 5 to 7 years with the US and North American market, but things have changed significantly. I mean, it's gone from very few people doing it to now there's a whole market of it. I mean, we're 3,700 team members. We're putting on anywhere between 120 and 200 team members a month. So there's definitely the market appetite has changed. And I think the demand for global talent has changed over that period, but so too is the talent pool. I mean, we're the second largest employer of accountants in the Philippines. Only EY is bigger. So there's a large talent pool, but there's also a greater demand now happening internationally for talent as opposed to when we first started, we were largely competing with the local companies for talent. Now we're really looking at, there's multiple countries and regions and global talent's really become a thing.
So how much more do you need to do just to knock EY off the top spot out of interest?
A couple of thousand, so not a huge amount. Within a few years, we'll be there. But I think that, we've got a very different market to them. They really like the CPA graduates. There's about 3,000 to 5,000 CPA graduates. They take about 50% of them a year. They really have them for 3 years, and then they get rid of them typically. So we typically want to take from them once they've got that 3 to 5 years of I suppose, local accounting experiences when we want them. So, we're happy if they're bigger because we ultimately take from them after they've trained the people and they become too expensive. They don't want them anymore and they want to get a bunch of fresh graduates again. So, it's a good little thing, but yeah.
It's a good curve. And then I know you've got AB Squared, right? And you've got sort of like a learning institute and things like that. So, and again, this is where I think that development of talent is very important for firms here in the US to understand as well, in that even themselves, right? I mean, looking into building talent out from the grassroots level, right? And areas that they can be focused on, and they can do that with the outsourcing providers as well, but with a focus on that teaching and training being a very, very important aspect for those first couple of years. And I think that's one of the difficulties that some firms have, even just starting with an outsourcing firm, right? Understanding that, no, you do have to put some time in to train and get them used to things. But can you tell us a bit about AB Squared and just a bit about how you're working with firms within that as well? I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I think to put some context around it, one of the big things that when we first started with TOA Global, we thought that it would just be give our clients a person, give them the facilities and infrastructure and structure to succeed, and then they would do their thing and they would win. But what we quickly learned is that clients are not necessarily great at managing people, particularly when you've got them in another country with our cultural differences. They're not necessarily brilliant at training as well. And my big thing was around, well, how do we make, the reality is when you're going to a country like the Philippines, there isn't a huge talent pool of American trained accountants. The reality is that just doesn't exist. It needs to be trained. So you're getting someone cost effective. They're around a quarter of the cost, but the reality is they've got no US experience in most cases. So they had to be trained. So for me, it was around one of the really constraints for our customers being able to grow and scale with us, which is ultimately a constraint for us then, was the ability for them to train quick enough. And we looked at it and went, well, if this is a constant constraint that our clients keep saying, how do we take that challenge away? So we ultimately brought in a training, we built a training organization, a registered training organization in the Philippines. We're going through and becoming a private college in America at the moment. And ultimately what we then looked at is, all right, well, how do we give every single team member a professional development plan? And ultimately what my key measure of success is what I call speed to competency. How do we get someone from being they have no American experience to being completely competent and capable? And then how do we drive their career? Because like anyone locally, Filipinos also and people in South Africa also want a future. They want a career. They don't want to just come in and do graduate level work. And we want to progress them through so they are manager levels. And there's a bunch that have been working with us for a long time that are at that level. So for me, it's around how do we make them competent quicker? And that's a big part of the training plans. The other part of it is how do we give them local qualifications? So the training plans that our team members go through make them they get qualified as EAs, so they become enrolled agents. They then go through the American CPA program, and they have all of the skills that a local would. So that is really a big driving factor for us, was around how do we help our clients so that they don't have to do some of that heavy lifting with the training, that we can get our team members progressing their careers, which means they get paid more quicker as well if they're moving up the ladder. And the flip side of that is we also found that a big thing that clients, we then took care of the training for the team members, a large part of it. So then the clients only focus really on the process and systems. The next biggest thing we found is, well, hang on, the reality is most of our clients don't really understand how to manage a global team. So we built a program called Offshore Best Practice. We were the first ones in market with this 9 years ago, where we basically, like you, I've seen the good, the bad, and ugly, and I've seen everything in between. We've got 1,000 clients now. There's hundreds and hundreds that have been clients in the past that it just didn't work. And so we built the playbook, which is, I call it the good, bad, and ugly, but it's Offshore Best Practice, which we train all of our clients when they become a client on how to manage a remote team. So it's an 8-module course. It's a proper diploma level course, you could call it, where we teach them how to actually manage a team member in the Philippines. There's cultural parts of it. There's just managing remote. That's really stage one. We then put them through leadership courses after that, because the thing with accelerating and building global teams is a lot of the times firms locally now have people that are managing remote teams that wouldn't even be managing someone locally. So they don't have those leadership skills. They don't have that technical capability because they've never been trained on how to be a leader. They've been trained on how to be a good accountant or a good auditor. So I think for me, that was the big thing with AB2, was around how do we train to speed up the competency of our local team or team members in the Philippines and South Africa. But then how do we train our clients so that they can manage and grow a global team and not just, have to guess and learn from all the mistakes that others have made in the past before them.
So now one of the areas that I try and focus on as well, not just with the outsourcing firms coming on and talking about this, but also like other coaches, consultants in the space, and also firm leaders over here is around the cultural aspect, right? So, and again, I like asking the questions, especially to outsourcing providers, because the business is built around talent at the end of the day. I mean, the volume is at a different level than a lot of firms as well, right? I mean, firms you see over here are, some are in that 100+ range, but you find very few with thousands of employees, right? Other than in the top few firms, right? So can you explain maybe just from the cultural side, and not Philippine culture, but just larger scale amount of people, how you're working as a leader, how you've even grown to that stage? Like, what are some of these lessons that you would like to pass on as well to be able to manage people very effectively, right? To be able to make sure that they're coming first on the macro side of things as well. And I know we were discussing just a few minutes ago about some of the law changes going on, and right, you're planning well ahead of time, and you're now looking at different hybrid options for your team members, right? So that they're getting the best bang for their buck in a sense of a career path and things like that. Like seeing everyone else working virtually, guess what? It makes people want to work virtually, right? So can you talk about that a little bit? And again, from you don't have to dive in too deep. I know that some of it is you're initially planning for and things haven't happened yet. So, but that will definitely help, especially now for firms looking at how do I improve my culture internally.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, we call ourselves the accounting people. So at the end of the day, we are a people business. And I think that everything we do, our strategies and systems are really around how do we enable accounting firms to succeed. So one of the things that we've been able to build is a people management platform. So we've built a platform for our clients to be able to log in and really work and drive the performance of their team members. So I think that why we focus on this ultimately is that if the team member's not being successful, then the client's not going to be successful. And if either one of those aren't being successful, we're not going to be successful either. So It is working with a global provider, an offshore provider, it's a true partnership. It's not a product relationship where you buy a product and you've got software. It is a relationship where all three need to be happy, otherwise it doesn't succeed. So we are constantly looking at our offering to our team members to really look at how do we enable and grow their careers? How do we provide them with the best workplace where they want to work and also build a career? So we don't look at, providing jobs. We provide careers, and we want our team members to work with us long term. So everything we do really fits around that. And obviously the legislation at the moment only allows us to either work fully remote in the Philippines or in office, and they have to be through separate entities. We can't have the same entity. It's just the way the legislation works in the Philippines. But we know that the reality is that there's a combination of a couple. Some clients want in office and that's all they want. Some people want remote and that's all they want. And some people want that flexibility with hybrid. And hybrid is a project that we've been working on for close to 3 months now. We believe it will be passed so that we can, from a legislation point of view, actually do hybrid from the middle of the year. So at the moment, we can't offer it based on the areas where we operate, but we know that the legislation will pass. But But that means that we're going to potentially have thousands of team members that, are working currently in office that now need to be able to be set up so that they work under our security and infrastructure from home. Now, luckily, we have about 13% of our workforce. So we have, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that are working in a remote environment. So now it's a matter of how do we alter that. But, I think that the one thing that I are constantly working with our executive and our global leadership team and then our local teams around is how do we continue to enable our team members to be successful and have careers so that they can enable our clients to be successful. And, that comes back to tenure recognition. It comes back to recruitment. It comes back to onboarding, all the things that we generally, as a practitioner, when I had my firm, I spent very little time and energy focusing on my team. And that wasn't because I didn't want to. I love my team. We had a great culture, but we just weren't big enough. And we probably didn't spend enough time prescriptively building strategies. It sort of just happened. So I think that's the thing that I've learned really over the last 10 years of running TOA and founding TOA was, your people are your biggest asset. Everything we do needs to be driven around how do we continue to grow their careers? How do we provide a workplace where they want to not only join but stay? And then how do we teach our clients on how to build the culture? Because ultimately, we don't have the full say. The team members, I suppose, experience with us is 99% of it is with the client. Yeah. So how do we help the client to understand how to manage and grow and drive a team? And how do we have them have their culture within our culture? And that's a big thing is that we've really become an education company for our clients. And then the secondary thing is we've given the talent.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the important thing to actually make sure firms are really using their time wisely internally from a leadership perspective as well. They have to invest that time with their outsourcing firm, not just with the team members that they're working with, but also with the management from the outsourcing firm to be able to scale from a cultural perspective, right? And be able to translate some of that culture over. But like you said, to plan properly, that's the way. You go and talk to any coach, consultant that you have, like anybody's going to tell you, if you have a goal, if you don't put it down on paper, you're never going to hit the goal, right? You never, if you've got no metrics there, how are you going to measure whether you've even got halfway there, right? And it's just never going to happen. Even just from a simple perspective, like every single coach will tell you the same thing. But a lot of people don't go and plan as to, they have 3, 5, I've seen firms with 20 people offshore that haven't even put together a proper plan as to how they're being utilized and how they're actually involved in the team, in the actual whole firm's team in that perspective, which is a bit silly when at that point you're sort of hitting, you've probably got about 100,000 in monthly salaries going out, right? Yeah. In that sense. So it's, but it just hasn't correlated in that path yet. And
can I give you an example of that, Lawrence?
Yeah,
I think this would be a great one that had value. I had a client the other day that they bought one of our clients. So they didn't have a global team, but our other client that they bought had a team of about 20 people. So this firm's about 75 people. They basically inherited this offshore team of 20 people. And we've been working hard with getting a strategy built because it was a tactic. It wasn't really a strategy. And I said to them, look, how are you looking to grow the team now? And they said, well, this is amazing. Like we've got a team of 20. We're saving at least $40,000 per person. So it's putting $800 to $1 million on our bottom line. So we see the value in it from a revenue point of view. And we're also seeing it from an output point of view with the productivity of them. And they said to me, Nick, pretty much every time someone leaves locally, we're asking the question, should they be offshore or should they be local? And in 99% of the cases, they should be offshore. And I said, that's amazing, but you're going to be in trouble in 3 to 5 years if you put everyone with us. And I said, if I was being a sales guy, I'd be like, put everyone with us. Everyone should go offshore. And most providers will tell you that. But the reality is that's the worst thing you can do, because I said to them, what people do you need locally in 3 to 5 years? Because you still need to bring graduates in, but instead of taking them 7 years to get to a manager, you need to fast track them. I said, so you can't build a global strategy in isolation. It needs to be your whole firm strategy, because in 3 to 5 years, if you put everyone globally with us, awesome. but you're going to be in trouble because there's no one local to actually be able to train them, and you're going to have managers and all your senior staff in a global environment. So it is really a combination of making both your local and your global strategy working. And that's a big thing we teach our clients, is how to actually design and build a people strategy. I know we've had many conversations. That's in essence what you do, is go in and help them to actually plan it, because it's not a tactic. It has to be a strategy. And that's why even within our business, right from day one, we put account managers in America. We put account managers in Australia, because you need someone locally that you can work with around that strategy, around, I'm having these challenges with managing the team. What are the frameworks or process that we've already got that we can teach them? And that's really why we have that local account management, as well as having obviously that same level in the Philippines and South Africa and whatever other countries we move into in the future. But I just want to make that point that, building a global team, yes, there's the cost arbitrage. That's the benefit of it. But you need to go in with the right strategy, because if you're only thinking about let's get everything offshore, you're going to be in trouble. Equally, if you just put one or two over there, but you've got a team of 100 locally, you're not maximizing the strategy. So I think, Lawrence, you do this all day, every day, as much as me how critical that is, because like our client that has 20 people and we're just going to keep growing it, in 5 years, it would have been a problem. And they wouldn't have seen it coming. It would have just sort of slapped them in the face, and they would have went, well, hang on, what happened? Yeah. So I think
And that's a good, and again, great example specifically, because again, there's so many transactions happening in the market as well, in terms of firms being acquired, merging up. And again, we've one of the major challenges and reasons for some of these firms moving is because of talent, right? But that's not going to change on the macro scale. I mean, we're in a certain position right now where there's a certain amount of talent not coming into the industry anyway. So there is going to be there's the consistent drop off, right, as of right now. So there are still options, plenty of options out there to utilize, such as TOA, such as in the Philippines, India, wherever they want to go. There are lots of people available to be used, but also they have to change the way that they're currently using them to make sure it's effective. But it's not just a quick thing, right? It's a strategy that needs to be developed over time with leaders on every side. Otherwise, it's not going to go the way that they expect as well. You can't make a plan with only half a team there, because the other half of the team is not going to know what's happening, right? So it's a great point. And then can we go over maybe, and again, you've worked with so many firms. I think you mentioned over 1,000 firms you're working with now. So can you maybe, as we start to wrap up, just give us sort of what one of the top challenges that you see sort of firms making, and maybe a best practice or a couple of best practices around that challenge that firms can really implement if they're having that problem to make it more effective and sort of overcome that challenge?
Yes, I think one of the biggest challenges is having this as a tactic, not as a strategy, and not having a clear plan. So obviously putting in place a people strategy and considering where will we be in 3, 5, 7 years, not just we need a short-term fix. So having that longer-term approach. I think the other big challenge is treat it like another office. So we see a lot of firms that put on a global team and they never go and see them. And I think that's the reality is these are your people. They just happen to be another office of yours, and that office happens to be in another country. So treat them exactly like you would if you had another office within America. You'd go and visit them. You would make them feel part of your culture. You would do all the things that you would do for your team that are local. Do the exact same with your global team. Don't treat them like an outsource center where you're sending work. Treat them as another office. And I think that's the key thing. And I think that the third one, which is probably the most critical to me, is the most technical person that you have in your local office is not necessarily the best person to train these global people. And I think that you need to look at it as the team, whoever is managing the global team, need to have strong leadership capability, because building a global team really exposes weakness in process and systems and poor leadership. So make sure that whoever is the onshore, what we call the onshore champion, is a strong leader and a really, really strong communicator, and that they understand the culture of the country where they're operating. Invest as much time in your local team and the knowledge that they're going to require to be successful. And I know that you help a lot of firms doing that, Lawrence, which is awesome, because it really sets firms up for success. Otherwise, if you go, here's a team in another country, good luck, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, and that's a great one, and I think that's one where even firms, if they really thought about it, they can understand and really sit down and be like, oh yeah, this person's, even though they have the most need for it and for their team members, they're not necessarily the best person to necessarily manage the outsourced team, right? And it's and again, there's a reason why they're probably not being successful hiring internally as well, right? Or actually retaining their internal talent in a lot of cases, right? So, and that's okay, but you've got to understand who's on your team, right? Who's the technical ones that want to sit behind the desk, do the work, right? And they're fine being involved from that perspective, but who are the leaders that are actually going to sit down and train and make sure they give feedback appropriately, make sure they look at things from a neutral perspective and say, hey, you know what? We can improve this process. It's not just the individual necessarily. Maybe it's a process flaw, right? And that's where I say, like with SOPs, I think it was I've been in a few presentations around this, and people say like, okay, who's got SOPs in place, standard operating procedures? There'll be a bunch of hands in the room. Yeah, we've got them. Who's looked at their SOPs or adjusted them over the past 2 years? Maybe 1 or 2 firms out of 50 will put their hands up. Yeah. And it's got to change. I mean, we've got new technology coming in. You've got new people from international teams coming in that you may need to segment a process and maybe say, hey, listen, these individuals can only really do this part of the process, right? For whatever reason. It may be a technical skill set gap. It may be just in terms of it's not functional for them to interact with certain clients until they've got to a certain amount of exposure, for example, right? But it's adjusting those processes is very important, and every firm should be looking at them very regularly, realistically, like to make sure that somebody's at least having that oversight. So I think that's a very good point, especially from, again, firms can do it internally. So they don't need somebody else to necessarily come in. You know your people the best, hopefully, right? But you've got to assess it as well and make sure we understand, like, all right, this partner's not the best to necessarily run this side of it. So, no, it's very cool, Nick. And again, I see all the time, you give lots of value. And again, the AB squared is cool that you're actually training firms as well. I didn't realize from that perspective, but I think it's a huge aspect. I see you posting all the time on LinkedIn with different best practices and things like that. So definitely somebody for everybody listening to follow and look out for these areas. I mean, is there anything that you want to share prior to wrapping up, just from, again, what firms can maybe do differently, right, as well, just from this outsourcing perspective, that you're just like, guys, do this. You'll be much more well off if you just go back and sit and do this internally. And it comes back to planning and strategy and these types of areas. But if you have anything else to wrap up with, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, no, I think at the end of the day, for me, it's around focus on your people. Your people are your biggest asset. So set not only financial targets, but what is the people strategy that our firm needs over the next 1, 3, 5, 7, 10 years, because the talent shortage isn't going away. There's a huge talent pool globally of strong accountants. I know in the Philippines, we get over 3,000 applications a month. And I know there's a multiple array of other countries we're looking at expanding into as well. So there's a huge global talent pool that can help supplement it, but it's not the answer. It's not the sole answer. You need to be able to have people locally. So what is going to make your firm attractable so that you can attract strong talent locally as well as globally, and building a plan so that you can have both. Because what I hate seeing is businesses turn away work because they don't have enough leverage being people. When there is enough people out there, you're just not building the strategy and executing it properly. So don't ever let we can't get talent be a reason why you can't run a proper business, and that you're stuck working in your business. So I think there's a great opportunity to focus on our biggest asset, which is our people, and let the people look after your clients.
Cool. No, appreciate it, Nick. And we'll definitely post some of the links and stuff that you have from the website and wherever you want them to contact you. But do you want to just quickly let them know, like, what's best to reach out to you?
The easiest way is LinkedIn. I'm quite active there. As you said, I post pretty much everyday content because the more we can educate people on managing and growing people, then the better we will all be. So yeah, Nick Sinclair at LinkedIn is the easiest place for them to find me.
Cool. All right, Nick, appreciate it. And thank you for everyone for joining today. And again, please reach out to Nick if you've got any questions, or you can reach out to me. Happy to connect you up. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Business Beyond Borders. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Business Beyond Borders. I'm Lawrence Whittam, and it's been a pleasure bringing you impactful insights tailored for the modern CPA firm. Remember, the world of accounting is vast and ever evolving, and we're here to navigate it together. For more resources and episodes, don't forget to subscribe and reach out to our experts. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your business and explore the limitless possibilities beyond borders.